Today, we're going to be going through the new data-powered screens in Fliplet Apps. This will be about some of the new ways that data can be used in your apps. I am your host, Tonu Wu. I am the head of engineering here at Fliplet. During this presentation, you're welcome to ask questions or share suggestions at any time using Zoom's Q&A button, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window. This will share your questions privately, which means they will only go to the session host and administrators. We're keen to hear your thoughts and questions. If there's time at the end of the session, we will answer them. And if we don't have time to go through the questions, don't worry. We will follow up on your questions after the session. Just an overview of what we're going to be going through today. We'll talk about how data-powered screens are used, why we're improving data-powered screens, and then we'll talk about what's new. There will be a live demo of some of the new features. Then I will talk about when you'll be able to get your hands on them. Let's start by looking at how data-powered screens are used in Fliplet Apps. Data-powered screens are used in a variety of solutions. Directories can be found in many of our app solutions, as well as its own directory solution, to help users locate the contacts they need. Learning solutions use data-powered screens to make it easy for people to navigate through the courses and find the learning materials they need. And the emergency management solution uses data-powered screens to keep users informed on the latest emergency incidents. And just as a side note, Brett, our app solutions manager, will be taking us through how the learning solution has been updated with AI features to accelerate the delivery in our next session. If you want to learn more about it, you can stick around after the session. We know that when apps utilize data-powered screens, the engagement and retention rates are much higher. When we look at the top 100 apps with the highest session count in the last 12 months, apps that use data-powered screens represent 95% of them. When we look at the top 100 screens with the highest session count over the last 12 months, 91% of them are data-powered screens. This analysis excludes login, onboarding, and menu screens, which are usually the first screens that users land on when launching the app. This indicates that once users have launched the app and are logged in, they usually want to spend time on data-powered screens. This makes a lot of sense because data-powered screens provide users with information that are up to date. They provide rich information to users and usually have a certain flexibility in how users can find the data they need. So why are we improving data-powered screens in apps? We've come a long way since Fliplet first introduced data-powered screens. In 2015, we introduced Data Directory component that for the first time allowed users to integrate dynamic data into apps. It followed the best standards of the time and let users create directories with ease. In 2018, we improved on that design and launched a list from data source component that improved on the design, which included 5 different layouts to help our users build on top of different types of data, such as directories, news feeds, and agendas. We realized that users' appetite for innovative solutions never really end. So from 2019 onwards, the Fliplet team has been working with our customers to build many, many more customized layouts. There are infinite possibilities to what people want to see in their apps. At Fliplet, we believe in enabling anyone to create beautiful and powerful apps, no matter who they are. We listened to your feedback and have re-engineered from the ground up how data-powered screens can be built. There are some key challenges that we wanted to solve for our users. Customers love Fliplet because of the ability we give them to customize the app experience. We know that people will always want customizations beyond what's readily available. However, users cannot easily alter the layout without using custom code. Our low-code approach makes this possible, but we want to make the process even easier for everyone. The data sources that power these screens often contain hundreds of thousands of entries. That often leads to a slow load time and could negatively impact your app experience. We know that data comes in different types and formats and carry different meanings depending on the app use case. This means it isn't really always easy for users to filter data to suit the purpose of each app. So, what's new? We know that Fliplet users are already familiar with the drag and drop interface and the appearance settings to build the user interface they want. This empowers users to customize the presentation of their data without needing coding skills. Users can be in control of the design and tailor each screen to meet their unique business needs. We have sped up data loading to enhance the user experience, especially for apps dealing with large data sets. This reduces frustration and increases the usability of the app in high-stakes environments where time is critical, such as during live events or when handling emergency incidents that are time-sensitive. We have also added real-time data updates. This means that users have access to the most current data at all times, which is critical for decision-making. For instance, in the remote and office management solution, being able to see real-time desk availability would make sure you don't miss out on the bookings you need. And finally, by integrating with the form component that our users already love, users will be able to create filters that are much more versatile. In a moment, I'll be showing you how to bind a screen to a data source entry, how to render a list of data source entries, how to set up real-time updates, and how to build custom filters. But before I do, let me first introduce you to some new components that you will see in the demo. We have added 3 new components that can handle data. Together, they help users control how they want to render data. Dynamic container allows users to connect to a data source. Record container allows users to load a single entry for components. And the list repeater allows users to load a list of entries for components. These 3 components are responsible for loading data from the data source so that other components can make use of the data. For example, the text component is updated to render text from a data source column using a new syntax, which I will show you in a moment. The dynamic image component is a new feature that lets you render an image based on what's found in each data source entry. Together, users can set up the data flow from the data source to having them displayed in the apps. Now, let's use the example of a simple directory to show you how to build data-powered screens. Let me go ahead and switch over the demo. And we have switched over to Fliplet Studio. Let's start with the building of the profile screen. This will be a screen that can be used to display the information of any single person. But before we begin, let me just switch over to the data source manager, just to show you what kind of data we're working with. Over here, I have a data source called users. You can see the name, email, photo, which are already preloaded into our file manager. It highlights each person's capacity, what department they're in, which office, and the country of that office, their job title, expertise, and a short bio. So if I go back to the editor, let's start with the profile page, which is currently empty. So I am first of all going to add a dynamic container to the page. As mentioned earlier, the dynamic container connects to a data source. So all we have to do is select the data source that we want to load data from. And we have the user's data source. I'm going to save this change. And then I'm going to drop inside of it a record container, which is responsible for loading a single entry. The entry loaded depends on the data source entry ID parameter provided to the screens. Don't worry about that. We will come to that in a moment. However, we will make use of the test mode, which is on by default, while we build the screen so that we don't have to worry about which entry is going to be loaded. Later on, we can then connect this to the directory screen, which will control which entry can be loaded. So I'm not going to make any more changes and just save this. Now let's start with adding a dynamic image into the record container. I'm going to select the photo column so that the image is loaded from that specific column, and then save it. Let me switch over to the preview, and you can see that it's already loaded something that is not the placeholder. So it seems to be doing something. Well, how can we be sure that it's actually the entry that we want? Well, I'm just going to keep building on top of this. So let me add a text component. And this time, I'm just going to start with displaying the user's email. And let's switch over to the preview. And you can see that it is indeed loading data from the data source manager. Okay, so that is working now. So now we can really go have some fun with this. So just having an email isn't really useful. So I'm going to add first name to this. Now, when a column includes a space, we're going to need a square bracket wrapped around it. And then I'm going to add surname to this. I want it looking slightly different. So let me change that to a heading 3. And I think it'll be useful to display the person's capacity level as well. Let's take a look just to see how well I'm doing. Wow. Okay. That's it. It's working now. Let me add a bit more to this. I'm going to use a table this time. Let's use a table that displays the person's office, which department they work in, their job title, and their expertise. And I'm just going to quickly map these over to the data. Title, and then last but not least, expertise. And I think I want to bold maybe the first column. Here we go. I'm just going to test that again. Wonderful. That's all working. And just to sort of change things up a bit, I think I'm going to add an accordion to this. So here's an accordion, which I'm going to call bio, because I think the bio could be a bit long and I really don't want to be clogging up the screen with information until the user really wants to see it. So I'm going to set up my accordion and add a text component in between. And I'm just going to simply call it bio. Make sure it's loading from the bio column. Let's switch over to preview. And I have an accordion at the bottom of the page. And here we go. It's easy as that. So now got this working, and that's it. As you can see, I'm able to customize the data-powered screens as I go using drag and drop interface that I'm already familiar with. Now let's try to build a list using the directory data. So I'm going to switch over and just check the screen is indeed empty. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drop a dynamic container and point it at the user's data source. But at this time, I'm going to add a list repeater instead. And I am this time going to make sure that it's going to be sorted by the surname column. And as we mentioned earlier on, the list repeater is able to load all the entries, depending on what filters you end up setting up, which we'll go through in a moment, and then allow you to drop in other components. I think that's all I need to do for now. And I'm going to start building this. Let's start with an image. I don't want this image. That gives me a static image. I want a dynamic image. So let me switch over to the dynamic image. And I'm going to pick the photo column again and save it. And let's just quickly test that. And here we go. This is all working. Excellent. Now let's continue to build on this. I think I'm going to need the first name, surname, and I want to include the department and then the office. And maybe let's include the capacity as well, because that could be useful. And I'm just going to change the first line to heading 4. Let's switch over. This looks like that's working. Oh, I must have spelled something wrong. Indeed, department. There we go. I think that's working now. But I'm really not going to have it looking like this. I prefer it if the image is on the side. So in order to do that, I'm just going to use the appearance settings feature that you're already familiar with. And let's start by changing the width to 70%. And then to add a margin to the left for 30%. Here we go, that's working. And I'm going to make sure that the image is also suitably updated. I'm going to change this to 50% width and position relative to the container and have it on the top left. You know what? I'm going to make this just slightly smaller so that I get a bit of spacing. Here we go. So that all appears to be working. So I think that gives me the layout I want. Let's switch over to preview to see what I've got. Here we go. I think that's exactly what I need. And you can see that from the scroll bar over here is that despite the data source manager having a lot of data loaded in here, it's really only showing some of them. And if I load to the bottom, you can see that it tries to load more entries. And this is one of the features that we're adding to make sure that data loading is as efficient as possible, because data is only loaded when necessary. Now I'm going to quickly whiz over to the directory again. And this time I am going to make sure that when I click on it, it displays the profile screen. And if I make sure that I disable the test mode, now something wonderful happens. If I go to the dark history, now I can click on Henry Adams and see his profile. I can click on Grace Allen and I can see her profile. And that's how you connect up the two options in the two screens. And let's take a look at the real-time changes. So you can see Henry Adams here has high availability. If I go and change that in here to moderate availability, now without changing or reloading the screen, you should be able to see in a few seconds that data then gets updated to show, oh, something doesn't appear to be working. This was working earlier on. Let's try something again. I'm going to load this user data source again and change this. And let's see if it's working now. That's weird. Well, we'll post an update on this when this is working. And let's see what else we can show you. And so I am already pre-logged in fact, as the user Henry Adams. So if I go to filter feature now to see what else we can do with the list repeater, I can change this to show only people whose department equals to my. If I go to preview now, you can see that everyone in the strategy department are shown in here. Right, and that's all I've got to show you in this live demo. Let me switch back to the slides. Here we go. Right, so that was a fairly simple demonstration just now. And this is really just the beginning. We're building many other features so that when we're done, you can create beautiful screens that are powered by data. This includes the use of accordions, forms, sliders, and tables, and so on. So here's an example of the features that we are currently working on. Filters are a powerful way for users to find the data they need. We want to make sure users can fully customize how data is filtered in their apps. To do so, we've integrated with the form component. In the past year, we've updated the form component with several new field types, such as the date and time range fields, range slider, and matrix field. In combination with the drag and drop interface and the form's custom field width feature, users will be able to build filters that best suit their apps. Here we have some examples. The learning solution can make use of the date range field to find a course that started within the date range. The emergency management solution can make use of the type ahead field to select multiple people who are assigned to an incident. I've also shown here how the screen real estate can be maximized by placing the two radio fields side by side. When users want to book meeting rooms, they can use the matrix field to easily find the rooms that can support their meeting. And in summary, we've shown you today how to bind data with a single data source entry or a list of entries. With drag and drop, users can experiment with different layouts. And we understand that not everyone will want to build the screens from scratch. So Fliplet will be providing screen templates so that you can use them to quickly add data power screens to your apps. By improving load times, Fliplet Apps can load more data-intensive screens without negatively impacting the experience. Real-time updates will ensure users can rely on apps for the latest information and increasing their trust in the app's information and timeliness. All the above will be ready by a beta launch later this quarter. There are many other features that we have already begun working on as well. Oh, let me go back here. Links will be updated so that users can be taken to a screen or URL based on what's in each data source entry. Custom filters and sorting will be added to further customize the the app user's app experience. Social actions such as bookmark and like will be added to allow users to personalize their data and interact with each entry. Comments will be added so you can allow users to add commenting and discussions to any data source you want. Image and file lists will be added to make a list of images and files associated with each entry and make them available to the users. We will also be adding the functionality for you to customize which users will be able to see which features are on their screen. All of the above are currently being worked on, and as they become ready, we will launch them to make sure you can make use of it. The date selector will allow you to build an agenda for your event. Social sharing will let your users share the content found in your apps. And the image component will be updated to let you easily add icons to your screens. And lastly, tabs will give you more ways to organize the information on your screens. Now, let's see where we're at. Looks like we've got some time and we've got some questions here as well. Let's see. Here's a good one. If I'm currently using the list from data source component to build my directory, will I need to upgrade? And if so, will the existing lists stop working? That's a good question. The short answer is no. You don't have to update them. All the existing lists from data source components will continue to work. We will continue to fix bugs for them as well, if they're important. However, we do think that the flexibility and the performance with the new way of building lists will probably encourage you to want to build the list in the new way. And that's really depending on when you want to do this. If you want to build more lists using the current method, you can still continue to do so. That feature won't be removed in anytime soon. Will there be any training provided for the new drag and drop layout controls? Yes, we will provide comprehensive tutorials and support material that includes some of the syntax that I was showing you earlier on, and other materials such as webinars, live sessions, and so on. We're going to make sure that users are really get acquainted with these new features. And how does the new drag and drop feature handle mobile responsiveness? Good question. So obviously my demo just now has only shown how it works in mobile. But if you're used to the appearance settings feature, you will know that it also includes the ability for you to change how a certain feature looks on tablet and desktop devices. And that feature remains available as well. So you can still use the same features to ensure that the layouts created on desktop are automatically adjusted as well. Okay, let's see. Are there any limitations on the amount of data that can be processed with the new faster loading feature? That's a good question. I think it's a bit like what's the internet speed I need at home? Really, it's a similar type of question. And I think although while the new data loading features are optimized for high performance. Extremely large data sets, if you have billions of entries, they may still require additional optimization for segmentation and strategies. And let's see what else. I've got someone asking about charts. I believe that's because I showed an example with charts earlier on. Let's go back. Here we go, charts here. how will the charts know which data source or which data source entry and how that gets loaded? That is something we're still working on. We do believe that we'll be able to sort of provide a nice interface. So very much similar to how you would configure filters in Excel or Google Sheets and so on. And this sort of ties nicely to the next question I've got, which is about the single profile screen, because earlier on I showed how the profile screen loads a single entry either based on test mode or based on a data source entry ID provided by the directory screen. And we've got a question that says, how do I load my profile? Which is a very good question. We will be enhancing the record container as well. So you would have seen the list repeater at the moment currently has the ability to figure out how to filter the list. And at some point in the future, we'll be enhancing the record container also to make sure that you can find a very specific record, such as the record that I'm logged in with, or find me the profile of the CEO. So you can sort of create a screen that automatically is mapped to that specific data source entry.